come on in. I am Tamara L, and welcome to another installation of Just Another Messenger, where we raise the situational urgency and consciousness regarding today's current events. Now, throughout the years, there's been hundreds, and we could probably say thousands of messengers, just throughout the diaspora in Americas, in Africa, just throughout, sounding the alarm for liberation. Now, we're going to give some names such as Martin Luther, the Lutheran, Noble Drew Ali, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Shirley Chisholm, Martin Luther King Jr., and Carter G. Woodson. And that's just to name a few. And myself, Tamara L. Now, with each episode of Just Another Messenger, we're going to continue to dive deep into the historical past by examining the philosophies, the legal systems, and the political decisions that continue to influence our daily lives. Now, this episode is going to be great. Now, I'm just so excited about today and what it brings. It's just going to encompass the entire myriad of the information that we see going around the world today. Now, before mass communication, let's look at this. Now, before the mass communication, before there were legal systems as we know them today, you had kings, popes, and emperors. They ruled with absolute authority. Now, unlike the tribes of the West, they had the clans and the chiefdoms. Now, the laws was oral, and they were all based on the culture of that area. Everyone was able to govern and ruled under their own vine and fig tree. Now, the words of law. Now, if you think about that, the words of law. Now, I don't want people, let's not just throw your Bibles away, people. Let's not get ahead of ourselves and throw them away. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. So let's look at this. Let's just look at the first sentence of the Bible. Let's just look at that. It say, in the beginning was the word. We're going to stop right there. So if in the beginning was the word to create this matrix of reality that we're operating through this vessel, those words became the law of the body of the vessel, right? So that means that the words of law in when a particular time started happening, man needed to record and distribute them in order for society to be able to obey them. Now, after this point, there entered what you call a royal decree. Those royal decrees, they were a written command issued by the sovereign person that declared the authority over nations and empires, and that was legally binding, often without question. Now, let's look at one of the earliest and most famous example that comes from the Code of Hammurabi. Now, and that dates all the way back to 1754 BCE in Babylon. Now, those codes was carved into stone, and this decree, they helped set the foundation of the codified law, in which is currently coded in the West, the United States, as the Uniform Commercial Code. One would say, if you small that, it will say the UCC. Now, these messages, they are very clear in being able to understand how to operate in society. Now, they're very clear, and the rules of authority, they extend beyond their presence. Now, while these royals' decrees, they built nations, they also caused nations and empires to fall as well. But as all these monarchs and empires faded away, the power of the written authority didn't disappear. It didn't go away. The codes of Hammurabi didn't go away. The divine laws of the biblical laws, they did not go away. So as the monarchs, the kingdoms, the empires, as all those kind of faded in the backdrop, the words remain the same, and they have evolved in what we know it today, and what we see that's going on in the world. It's called executive order. So what I like to do is get your pen and paper and maybe some popcorn if you can. Get you a little snack. And what we're going to do, we're going to explore how leaders have used the ink to command, and they're still using the ink to command, control, and to be able to change history. That's dangerous, very dangerous. And it can also be great because it also could be course correction. See how we're going to look at it from both sides. We're not going to just have a one-sided view, which is what the General Education Board has called animal training. That was designed for animal training, to have a one viewpoint of how we look at things. We're going to do what you call a didactic method. We're going to look at it from two frameworks, and then you'll be able to make your own decision and choice as we move forward, right? We're going to do that. So get your pen and paper, like I said, and something to snack on, so we can go ahead and explore how leaders have used the ink to command, control, and change the history. Also, and discover the evolution of governing the mental through the stroke of a pen. And let's continue to send out prayers of restoration for those affected by natural disasters, as well as these wars that's going on that continue, even though there's some ceasefires that happen around the world. And most of all, don't forget to hit the subscribe, share, and like button over on YouTube, because we're not on Facebook. We publish on Facebook, but let's not forget to hit the subscribe, share, and like button over on YouTube to be a part of the conversation that you wouldn't want to miss. All right, we are back. Now, before we get started on this, let's have some really housekeeping rules here. I'm going to put this up. I'm going to scroll at the bottom. If you'd like to continue to support the page, you can support us through Cash App at $ just another messenger. That's JUST another messenger, and it will stroll across the bottom throughout the entirety of the broadcast for today. Now, today may be quite a lengthy, because I have some really good information to share, and it's going to help unpack some things as well. Like I said, subscribe, share, and like over on YouTube at Just Another Messenger. We are on YouTube at Just Another Messenger. We're very excited. Last week we were at 89, and we have hit our mark of 100 subscribers. We are so excited that this page is growing organically. We are not purchasing subscribers or anything. We are getting the message out, and we are growing an organic page. It's been 13 weeks. This is our 13th episode, and we have 101 subscribers. So, hey, let's give a shout out for that. So please go ahead and subscribe, like, and share on YouTube at Just Another Messenger. Also, follow us on X at JAM, JAM_404 podcast. And feel free to contact us if you'd like to be a part of the show. If you know someone would like to be a part of the show, please contact us at Just Another Messenger podcast at gmail.com. We're going to keep this donate button up as we get started here. Today's episode number 13 is called Inked Authority, from Royal Decrees to Executive Order. Let's see what's going on in the chatty Cathy box. We have Dorothy Reason, Grand Rising. Well, Grand Rising to you, Love Bug. I'm great to have you, and thank you for tuning in to Just Another Messenger. Let's get started with this. Disclaimer: the views, opinions, and thoughts are the protective expression of Tamara L. for storytelling and educational purpose, and does not provide statutory counseling for any United States color of law jurisdiction or proceeding. But I promise you my information will definitely help. All right, what's going on around the world? Number 45, Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump is issuing out those executive orders like Tic Tacs this week. He is dealing with that 14th Amendment. And like he said, that 14th Amendment was not designed for you people to call yourself native. It wasn't designed. It was designed for those people that we had in bondage, that was black, Negro, colored, that we deemed them as slaves. It was designed for them. Please do not get mad at the messenger, but Donald Trump sent that messenger out loud and clear, and let the record show and let the record reflect that we have been placed up under bondage, honey. He said that was not for y'all, baby. That was for those people that we got in bondage, that we have reclassified them as Black, Negro, colored, and African American. All right, so baby, he's gonna be dealing with these people running around here with these feathers in their head, and then want to sit on reservations and want to and take money that it was not meant for you. He's gonna deal with all that. Come on, Trump, burn it down. All right, and he said, and we're gonna deal with y'all on this birthright citizenship thing. He said, only birthright we done sold are the people that was classified as Black, Negro, color, and your ancestors that came over on the boat, and you came in through what you call the harbor over there on Jersey. There's the Statue of Liberty, and you got your liberty, and y'all came over here, and y'all got off that boat, and then some of y'all went down to Brooklyn and Manhattan and got off boat there because y'all told y'all king that you wanted to immigrate out and come into another society. He said, you gave away your birthright. Trump said you gave away your birthright. Your ancestors gave away your birthright when y'all ran for your home country. He said, no, the only ones we're going to deal with about this, we going to make it be known that we stole their birthright are the ones that got reclassified as Black, Negro, colored, African American. Trump said, no. He said, well, since y'all want to throw me in jail, and since y'all want to put all these felonious charges on me, he said, I'm going to go ahead and just pull the sheets off, and I'm going to show y'all who the real thieves are around this town. That's what Trump did. He said, now y'all stealing. Y'all stealing through foreign aid. Y'all putting that money in them boxes and sending everywhere and talking about y'all paying for condoms and coffee and all that. He said, I'm going to show y'all who the real thieves are. And I'm laughing. I'm telling you, I have my popcorn out. And he said, these cabinet members, he said, I don't care if they qualified, bona fide, they're going to get in these offices, and we're going to shake up this thing right here. And then Netanyahu, he came. I don't know if he's scared. I know he honored that ceasefire on the day of the inauguration on January 20. He honored that ceasefire against the Palestinians. And then he come running his butt on over here, standing up there. I guess he had to check in because he know Trump was going to start blowing up his head next. So he had to check in and make it seem like that he on board. But Trump said, I ain't finished with you yet. I'm just getting started with you. So he had to check in and make sure everything all right. And this immigration crisis, my goodness, this immigration crisis is going on. I mean, they are rounding them up like the OK Corral, which I have mixed feelings about that, because some of these people coming home, they already in America now. They already home. Now they rounding these people up. Now I'm going to tell y'all, some of y'all with these curly wigs on, I think y'all need to go ahead and take them off for a minute, because y'all may get mistaken for Papito and be over there sitting over in them concentration camps, so they try to figure out who you are. Y'all may want to take them curly wigs off for a minute. And this tariffs. Now, if you eat eggs, and you're worrying about just the cost of eggs and the cost of bread, I think you need to worry about other than to eat. I think you need to worry about other things other than stuff just to eat. So this tariff, this is going to be an interesting thing. Come on, 47. I mean, you are making a splash in less than 30 days of getting in this office. All right. Happy Negro History Week. This is dedicated to Dr. Carter G. Woodson. I love the work that he's written. I tapped into this work, and I'm going to give that up to, thanks to, I was turned on to this body of literature based from Taj Tariq Bey. I give homage to Taj Tariq Bey, who opened my mind to nationality, understanding my birthright and who I am, and it's helped me to become the person I am today. I also give thanks to a lot of other scholars that has helped in open the enlightenment to who I am today. But for Negro History Week, we're going to give thanks to Dr. Carter G. Woodson. It is not Black History Week. It is Negro History Week. And Dr. Carter G. Woodson chose February because Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, whom he felt had greatly influenced the lives of African Americans, and I'm pretty sure that meant Negroes, had birthdays in February. This is one of the, I mean, when I say go get this book, you should have this book in your library. And if you do not have a library, you need to start having a library. This book is called A Miseducation of Negro. Now, if you listen to Lauryn Hill, you will see how she took some of this book. You can tell she was a fan of this book, so because she took some of the lyrics from this book and put it into her music. And also this This book, this book information that's in this book is also in a lot of movies that you see today. Let's see what Dr. Carter G. Woodson had to say about the Negro on miseducation. He said, if you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to be concerned yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. You know, I think that is quite telling, because one of the things that baffles me a lot when I hear the word white supremacist. What? For 2025, I think we need to take that word and we need to put it in the trash can, and I mean in the toilet, and flush it. Because this is the same example of what Carter G. Woodson talked about, miseducation. You do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself, which means if you keep saying the word white supremacist, you have automatically accepted that you are inferior to something else. And let's look at what Dr. Carter G. Woodson said on education and freedom. The so-called modern education, with all its defects. Now, this is a man that carries a PhD. Now, a PhD. He said, nevertheless, does others so much more good than it does the Negro, because it has been worked out in conformity to the needs of those who have enslaved and oppressed weaker people. This is what I talked about in my earlier series, that I talked about broken classrooms. When we talk about the need to be autodidactic. And autodidactic is self-learners, which means it's great to have formal educational training for rubrics. That's great. But you must step outside of the formal training and goes into a deeper training where you're seeking knowledge and truth, and it unlocks the self. It unlocks the self and makes that connection to source. So you have to get into a point where you create a library. Like I say, even if you just start with this book, The Miseducation of the Negro, start somewhere. Start with a body literature work to start digging into the papyrus of that. Let's look at on economic independence. He said the Negro must learn to put first things first. First things first. The Negro must have a business of his own and let others get what they can. On self-knowledge. If you teach the Negro that he has accomplished as much good as any other race, he will aspire to equality and justice without regard to race. Without regard to race. Do you know what that means? That's why I said we're gonna flush Black History Month down the toilet, because Black History Month deals with a reconstructed time period when the people of nobility, the nationals, was reclassified as subjects, as property. Why are we continuing to look at that aspect of our time period and not look at a time period? Now, in order to capture something and want something, it has to be of value. Like I know personally myself, I'm not going after something that doesn't have any value, which means that we must be of tremendous value, great value to the world. Because why else would you want us? Why else would you want our strength? Why else would you want our knowledge? Because we are that. Not like us. They're not like us. They're not like us. You have to capture this. You have to capture this. You have to switch and change the narrative. That's what has happened. So we have to start looking at our greatness, our accomplishments, even during the time periods of our enslavement, whether physical and mental, because still we rise. We still rise. That's a beautiful thing. On leadership and representation, the large majority of Negroes who have put on the finishing touches of our best colleges are all but worthless in the development of their people. Are all but worthless in development of their people. I get that. I get that. And I understand that. I hold a master's degree. And let me tell you, I remember having that mindset that I'm going to climb someone's corporate ladder and get to the top. And I remember when I got to that top, guess what happened? Somebody played a trick and they pulled the ladder off and up under and came crashing down. And guess what it taught me? You have to go and learn about self. You have to go and learn how to build. And I started doing the work, and you have to start learning about self, the divine self. I self law and master. You have to start learning about that and walking in that. Yes, that is very great. So thank you, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Thank you for Negro History Week and also shedding the light on who we are, who we were, who we are, and who we are going to be for the futures to come. Now we're gonna keep talking about the basis of civilization. And now this is, and I'm not sure, this has clicked in some mind because I've gotten a lot of phone calls and text messages regarding that. Yes, this is the framework and foundation of building a tribe, building an organization, building a civic body. It deals with the God principle. What is the moral compass? It deals with law, setting the law of a constitution in place. Whether you're going to do it in positive law, any constitution must be in a positive law. Negative law is statute, codes, ordinance, and acts, which we're operating under with this United States jurisdiction. Etymology, the true science and meaning of a word. Which, okay, within Tamara, what is not the true science meaning of a word? That is semantics and connotation, which is language. When you and one of the messages, and actually it was a thank you, and it was from a relative, and they was like, thank you for letting me know to start with understanding the language. I would encourage anyone, please do not go pick up a book from the 1600s, from the 1700s, any literature in antiquity, even the 1700s or 1800s. I would not try to pick up any of those body literatures. And I'm going to show you that in this feed. Do not try to pick up any of those literatures and try to read them in a connotative mindset and meaning of the word. It totally changes the context of the structure of the meaning of what was delivered then to now. It's not the same. You must put the word in its time and place and frame and proper place of writing. You must, in order to understand its meaning. That's very important to do that. And also the people. Now, this is where it's getting important. This is where Trump is talking about. Well, he's talking about a society. He's talking about the United States. He's birthright citizenship. He's talking about the society, the people that are in that society. What is their status? What is their estate, out of state? What is that? Autochthonous, from the earth, indigenous, in the land, native. You're of that land, but you are foreign. You're foreign to that land but you was born in a foreign area, but you indigenous to the land where you at. Okay. Now this is a tricky part where the descendants, they're native, their ancestors descend from a foreign jurisdiction, but they're native to the United States. This is what is at stake here, where even with Trump, and I'm going to show you that, even with Trump himself, Trump understands that he's native. He understands his ancestors descend from a Slavic nation. He understands that there were hundreds and thousands, you can just Google it, over millions of Slavic, which means mid-European descent, Middle European descent, which are Slavics, which is the origin of which the word slave is derived from. Okay. President Trump even understand that he is native. He understand what native mean. He understand that. And that's what is being driven home. The difference between the native, indigenous, autochthonous, and the people who either immigrate or immigrate due to a refugee status or asylum seeker status. This is what is being talked about in the news of the society of the United States. We must get this understanding down. We must get this right. All right. Now, and the reason why I say before we go here, let's do this because it's so important that I just want to come on here. I just want to come on here. And I want to play with this a little bit because we're going to go a little bit over. We're going to go a little bit over an hour. Maybe we're going to go an hour and a half, say something like that. Because I want to unpack this. We got to unpack this today. This thing has kept me up for days. I mean, I got a pain in my shoulder. I just want to deliver this message to you so it could just go forward. Now, this status, the building block. See how the base is so important. The base of a society and civilization is so important because let's see how in movies, when you're not in your proper status, straw man status, they have shown us that is from 1978, The Wiz with Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, and others. You know what I'm saying? Was showing you status. When we're dealing with status. We're dealing here with the status of the people. When you're in a status other than your native status as being who you are, autochthonous, indigenous, you are forced to be in a colorable status, a Black Negro racial status, a Black Negro, colored, African American. That does not delude you. It pushes you. You're up and you're in a position. You're in that straw man position. And as you say, you can't win, child. You can't win, and you're not going to get out of that game. You're not going to win. Now, let's look at this. Let's look at it from an ecclesiastical perspective, all the way down to the executive order. Let's just continue to unpack this. Now, the Pope has all the power to the crown and uncrown, also to change the course of empires. And that's through way of papal bull orders. Now, the papal bull power through the church was very powerful. It was very diabolical. And even to this day, it has caused much destruction. And the titles that the Pope held, they were called Father of Kings and Monarchs, Lord of the Globe, Vicar of God, which means the voice of God, which means saying, oh, God told me to do all this. God told me to subjugate the people of this matter. And let's look how that pen became mightier than the sword. I mean, even though they went about through the means of subjugation, that pen from then to even the pen that Donald Trump picks up and swipe is very mightier than the sword. Let's look at that. All right. Now let's look at how the explosion of the pen backfired with King Edward I back on through the Magna Charta of 1215. Now, the Magna Charta contains 63 clauses, but the most significant one includes the rule of law, which is no one, not even the king is above the law. That one backfired on them. Okay. Now, due process, people cannot be punished arbitrarily. They may receive the fair trial, which through habeas corpus, protection against unlawful imprisonment, no taxation without representation. The king cannot impose taxes without the approval of his baron. Oh, and you guys think this just started occurring through the Congress and the judicial branch? No, these laws, I'm showing you, these are historical content that goes all the way back, even during the Code of Hammurabi, the laws of equity, the laws of fairness. This is not new. So we have to look at what is being played out till today, how it connects to then, and is it creating a continuation, a subjugation, or is it creating a course correction? But you got to get your head in the game to know what you're seeing and know what's being understood in order to know how to play. Or you're going to just continue, or we're going to continue to keep getting played. And also property rights. The government cannot seize property without proper legal procedures. All right. Now, let's look at the framework of that papal bull. Let's look and see how the Pope through the ecclesiastical order of the papal bull. This is called the Dum Diversis, the 1492 Dum Diversis, which means until different. Until different, and this was granted. It was issued by Pope Nicholas the Fifth on June 18th, 1452, to Afonso the Fifth of Portugal de Moor, and it validated his appropriation of regions in the West. Now, you remember how in Congress and they say, well, what's the appropriations? What's the appropriation? That means the cost. What is going to be the cost? What is going to be the cost of being able to take care of this voyage right here? Well, how is that going to work? Now it reads, we grant to the aforesaid King Afonso to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens. Just put the word Moors in black right there, black narrow color, and pagans. And pagans just mean first, whatsoever, and other enemies of Christ, wheresoever place in the kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possession, and all movable and immovable goods whatsoever held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery, and to apply and appropriate to himself and his successor the kingdoms, dukedoms, counties, principalities, dominions, possessions, and goods, and to convert them to his and their use and profit. Appropriation. And this was the Indigenous Values Initiative, Volume 1. Remember we talked about the status of the people? This is colonization at work through the pen of the church, the papacy. All right. And let's see how also the papacy is complicit through their pen. They wrote also Roger Bagorja, the White Moor of Spain, 1492, became the Pope Alexander VI. On May the 4th, 1493, he issued a papal bull called Inter Caetera, aka the Doctrine of Discovery. Quite sure you heard of that. Now let's get the framework of the 1493 Doctrine of Discovery. Let's look at that. Now, we talked about this before, but we have to unpack this in these royal decrees to executive order to kind of bring it all together, because a lot of times as messengers, things are chopped up and it's harder to see the framework of the movement of the train. So we have to create a compilation. Even if you've seen it before, you heard it before, as a messenger, you have to now bring the breadcrumbs of information delivered to a compilation in which it makes sense for the whole, for the masses. All right. So the 1496 Doctrine of Discovery, this was a apostate command to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Castile, Leon, Aragon, Sicilia, and Granada in their recovery of Granada from the yoke of the Saracen. Saracen. Didn't the Intercatera Divina? Didn't it mention also we taking the Saracens and the pagans? We're taking their land, movable, immovable. Okay. So we're going to keep on about this thing. And we're going to overthrow the barbarous Moorish nations and bring to the Catholic faith. I thought it was Christianity. Okay. Gotta look at this. Christianity, Christendom, Catholic faith. What are we doing here? What is it? Okay. Now, at this time, Christopher Colon, aka Columbus, had already set up his garrison and started the process of Christian conversion, even killing non-converters. Now, during this region, they found gold, spices, and many other precious items. Now, they also appoint and deputize heirs and successors of lords with full and free power, authority, and jurisdiction of every kind, all dominions, cities, camps, places, villages, and all rights and appurtenances, all islands and mainlands 100 leagues towards west, south of Azores and Cape Verde. This is what the papal bull of 1493, the Doctrine of Discovery, this is the stroke of the pen, the ink authority to go into the indigenous autochthonous people of Granada, of this land, and discover that you have what we want and we're going to take it. All right. Now let's look at this. I thought this was quite interesting. We have what you call the swarty King Henry the 13th, right? Tamara Swarty, yeah. Now let's make no mistake about it. The Borgias, Rodrigo Borgia, they called it White Moor. Yeah, that's because he's mulatto. You heard me. This is what we call black nobility. That's because he's mulatto. So it's hard to see when you're on P. So we kind of, it makes you wonder, oh, everybody else, has getting reparation. And it's like the hush secret, the really truly hush secret when you really dig into the papyrus and you're like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that this was our people from the papal bull all the way down to today, enslaving and creating laws of enslavement for people of the same bloodline and consanguinity that may not see it on the outside and probably that were seen as being swarty, because the word black, BLACK, was not a part of the language label in the 1500s, 1600s. It was not a part of the language label. So the word was, when you described it, when you're reading those books of ancient antiquity, and it talks about the complexion of the people that ruled these vast areas, it'll say swarty, of dark complexion, and it'll say mulatto, and mulatto was someone who were lighter complexion of a swarty, but they were a part of the swarty family, but they were just lighter. So these are your own people that has created this subjugation. Yeah. And who else? Yeah. So let's look at the swarty King Henry the 13th. Now he was a hoot. He was a hoot. Now he created what you call the Act of Supremacy of 1534. Now before 1534, England was a Catholic nation under the religious authority of the Pope. Remember, the Pope was over the Vicar of God. All right. Now the act officially rejected papal authority and made the English monarch the highest religious leader in England, which he called himself Lord Sovereign Head. Now let's see what happened here. Now in 1534, King Henry split from the church in an act of rebellion that is known today as the Act of Supremacy. Now, the motives behind this split were due to King Henry the 13th having an affair and wanting to divorce his current wife. Because the Catholic Church was solely in charge of any potential dissolution of marriage, King Henry the 13th sought the Pope's approval for being able to marry his mistress. Now, the Pope had denied. The Pope was like, no, I can't. You didn't have babies with this woman. You have annulled this marriage, this license, this contract, this estate. You have annulled that. Y'all had babies just because they weren't male heirs and they died. What is that to us? No, we're not doing that. The Pope said, no, your request is denied. And this angered King Henry. Now, in that essence, what transpired was the formation of one of the world's first dominational split. Now, people say, oh, there's no such thing as church and state. Well, I'm showing you church and state has always been and always will be. And this is how it changed, right? Now, this allowed him to control the church doctrine, administration, and the property. Remember, it was originally under the Pope. King Henry said, you know what? I'm sick of y'all. Y'all not going to keep controlling me. I'm now Lord Sovereign Head of this region. Now, all the clergy and government officials were required to swear on an oath of loyalty to King Henry as head of the church, and those that refused, like Sir Thomas More and Bishop John Fisher, were executed for treason. Executed. Yeah. Now, Henry dissolved his monastery. He even seized the land and wealth to strengthen the crown's finances. He just took their money and taking them. And this is how it changed from church state and replaced it to state church. He was the swarthy king, the brother. Yeah, the brother. Yeah, had a mistress. He wanted to be with his mistress. Now, after this time period, there was a, look at the other brother, King Alfonso. He was really dampened by what was going on in the regions with the colonization. Now, remember I said when you look deeper into history, you will see that the monarchs of the regions, they were controlled by Black nobility. BLACK, Black nobility. We say Black nobility now. We can say swarthy nobility. We can say swarthy nobility. Right. So these kings, they didn't hire, they didn't put, the Privy Council. The Privy Council were other people that looked like us, right? In the Privy Council, the private chambers, the private councils, the government. But the working hand to oversee, now there's levels to this shit. There was levels to it. Now, to oversee the people, now they put the Albions in place, right? They put the Albions in place to give them a place among society. We're going to put the Albions in place to oversee the corporation and the subjects. But the word got back through. They have a governing board. It's called a plantation, the governance of farmers and plantation, right? So word got back that they being barbarians on these corporations, on these plantations. Like they killing your people. They killing your people. They're slaughtering them, rape, molestation. I mean, it's a lot going on. So they was like, well, we need to have a meeting about this in the Caribbean. We need to have a meeting. What's going on down in the Americas about this? Now, this happened in April 1850. Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire and King of Spain had a Spanish conquest in the Americas, right? Now, a panel of over a dozen theologians. Now, we got to talk about how mighty this pen is. A panel of over a dozen theologian officials and administrators gathered in the Collegia de San Gario in Valdita to hear the opposing arguments. Now, the two disputes were humanist scholar Juan Gens de Cepeda, all right, and the Dominican Friar Bartholomew de las Casas. Both agreed evangelism, the spread of Christian truth, was the goal, right? But the question was, were war and subjugation a just means to expedite it? Now, is it necessary to have war? Is it necessary to wage war on the indigenous, autochthonous people in their land, of their land, at their land? Is it necessary to wage war and subjugate these people in order to spread the Catholic faith? That's the question. That was the question in 1550, brought about by the Pope. The debate opened on August 15, 1550, with a 3-hour oration from Cepeda. He drew on Aristotle to argue that the indigenous people of America. Did he say native? Did he say native? Now, this is what now do Trump make any sense? I know there's a lot of people, man. They hate that man. They hate that man. Hey, we're gonna get into that. Did it say native? No, it say they to argue. Now they knew who the people were in 1550 that the indigenous people of America were natural slaves incapable of self-government, and it was Spain's moral duty to wage war on them as a prelude to subjugation and Christianization. They are as inferior to the Spaniards as children to adults, women to men. He wrote almost as monkeys to men. He said a second session, which followed in 1551, and this went on for a year. At least one judge didn't deliver his opinion until 1557, which he said conquest and as conquest and cruelty continued, but still the debate was a watershed, a point at which we can see the shape of modern questions about human rights. In 1573, Philip II issued a new ordinance regulating. So here we go, a pen. Now you got to see the pen at play. You got to see the ink authority at play. If you got your pen and paper, you got to make the connection to see the ink authority at play. These are the royal decrees that the papacy, the church wrote for war and subjugation against the indigenous autochthonous people in and of their land. All right. And Philip II issued a new ordinance regulating all future discoveries by land or sea. It banned the word conquest, recommending pacification instead. You can't make this up, people. You can't make this up when you see it. Now, this is how I tell people the pen has been mightier than the sword from conquest. We're not going to conquer them. Pacification. You must laugh to keep from crying, because I promise you I had some crying nights in just researching all this information and pulling it back together, because you go through so many studies. Yes, somebody asked me if my hand tattooed. Yes, my entire arm is tattooed before. When you go through a lot of studies, you have to go back and pull information up, and it gives you a lot of nights where you're crying. All right. Now let's look at this. We're gonna get into this. We're gonna get into the treaty with the Moors. And I know that in Western media, in the Western North, East, West, South media, there has been a propaganda campaign to and also legal teams that has created what you call a witch hunt upon the Moorish people, and being able to be messengers of truth. This has happened throughout years, all the way down to Prophet Noble Drew Ali, all the way down to Malcolm X, even to Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who came out of the Moorish Science Temple, even unto Farrakhan. Farrakhan, no. I just wish Farrakhan stopped and just, really get into it. I don't understand the teeter tottering with Farrakhan. There's been a lot of subjugation. There's been a lot of destruction at the hands of the United States agents in the message that were right and exact against the Moors at America. All right. So let's get into some of these treaties right here. I think it's very important to get into that. I want to share my screen here. I got to share this window. Let's see. No, I don't want to share the side screen. I want to share this part right here. I want to share, and this is in thanks to our good brother. I want to look at this. Our good brother Toriana Obashingo L. We reconnected, and he shared some information with me, and I wanted to share this information with you because I know a lot of people talking about, but Tamara, you're talking about Morocco in Africa. Let me just show you this. Let me just show you this. Okay, now this is an articles of peace and commerce between the Most High. That's why I said when you're reading literature, as you can see, this is from 1728. I highlighted it for you. This is for 1728. So when you're looking at reading literature, and you understand language, you'll be able to read because the words, the T and the D's translate differently during that time period. You'll be able to read this. It talks about how articles of peace and commerce between the Most High and renowned Prince George II, by the grace of God, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith, and the Most High, and glorious, mighty, and right noble Prince Muli Hamid Dabi bin Muli Hashim bin Muli Zara Muli Ali, King and Emperor of the Kingdoms of Fez and Morocco, Tunis, Suez, and all the Algerie and its territories in Africa, and all the Algerie. Sorry, that me and my Arabic is getting better. And on behalf of the Britannic Majesty, by His Excellency Belfort Hamlet bin Ali bin Abdallah, and His Imperial Majesties Admiral Asali Haji Aldecari Perez, and on behalf of the Emperor of Fez in Morocco. Now, this was January 14th, 1728. Now, this is 4 articles right here, correct? That's number 2056789. All right. Now, I'm not gonna read all this, but I just want to show you that was in 1728. Now look at this, a treaty of peace and friendship between the King of Great Britain and the Emperor of Morocco, 1751. Now, I want to bring you here. I want to bring your attention on this. It talks about how Islam, Brother Malik, to you. Thank you for tuning in. I want to show you how the 1728 treaty and the 1751. And remember, it doesn't say United States. United States wasn't even a part of this agreement that was taking place. All right. Now let's fix your eyes on this. It said the treaty of peace between His Majesty George II, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, and Moulay Abdullah bin Ishmael, King and Emperor of Fez, Maniki, Morocco, and look at say in all the west of Africa. Now, for you scholars, all the west of Africa, that's the Americas. That is America. And all the west of Africa, God bless him, and the following articles were concluded by. Now we're talking about jurisdiction, so that means that there was this treaty was between. Let's go back up here. Peace and friendship between the King of Great Britain and the Emperor of Morocco in 1751. Remember last week with where what's her name? Hillary Clinton gave thanks for Morocco recognizing the United States as its first nation, because the United States had control and territory of the America. So just wanted you to see that. All right, wanted you to be able to see that the territorial rights was in Morocco with the king and Emperor of Fez, Manique, Morocco, and all the west of Africa. Remember, I told you when you're looking at language, the S and the F. So that's why I said you can't read this context in this current language. You have to know language to know. You wouldn't even be able to read and know that the F was replaced with the S. Would it say west of Africa? You wouldn't even know that. You have to know the language labels. You have to know the changes in the time period to read this old text. All right. And you have to know what the west of Africa means. The west of Africa is America, and all the west of Africa. That means that the Moorish king, he had dominion over all the west of Africa in order for the king of Great Britain to be able to have peace and amnesty to do commerce. So you have to show you that. And so we're gonna so that is treated with the other treaties with the Moors. It's a treaty of peace and friendship of 1787. Now, and that was between Morocco and the United States. Remember, the United States said remember Hillary Clinton said in 1777. So, which means that Morocco had to go into a treaty of peace and friendship between now Morocco and the United States. All right. And also, there was also a treaty of 1856, the treaty between Great Britain and Morocco. All right. So I'm not going to read all those. I just wanted to show you how when people say, oh, we're talking about Morocco over there, you can't be talking about the Kingdom of Morocco because the Kingdom of Morocco did not exist in 1728. The Kingdom of Morocco was under the French protectorate. They had to regain their sovereignty back, connected back to the land, the kingdom of belonging to Morocco. They had to create the connection back to the land after they was able to get it back from France, just as who else had to regain their sovereignty back from France just recently? Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. Come on now. We talking about this Berlin conference being unraveled here, people. We don't think it just happened over in Africa. Don't think Africa was just carved up by the European Slavic nation. No, the Americas been carved up by the European Slavic nations as well. Now let's see, like I said, in the past articles, you'll see in the past content, if you go back and look at some of the videos, you'll see that it was France, it was Spain, it was the Portuguese, it was Dutch, it was Sardinia, and then the last one on the scene was the British. The British are coming. The British are coming. Yeah, the British came with full force, but they came in a sneaky way. We can get into that. We can get into another episode I'll do. It's called God and Glory. We're going to get into that. All right. Now let's look at this treaty here. Now, this is the treaty that the United States stand on. This is the treaty they stand on. The 1783 treaty with the British Crown, which granted the United States vis-a-vis its sovereign powers. We talked about this. I want you to pay close attention where it talked about this is this definitive peace treaty between Great Britain and the United States. It doesn't say Morocco. It say Great Britain because that means that Great Britain had the territorial. Remember, we talked about, I gave you definitions. Go back and look at the previous content. I gave you the definitions between the difference between territory and jurisdiction. Territory is the land, terra, the land. Jurisdiction is the occupation, the usurpation, and the colonization of the land, the latitude, longitude, all that. What does this mean, Tamara? It means that every contract, and I'm saying this and I'm saying it wholeheartedly, and I love I know we do things, and sometimes we do these things not knowing that not knowing what we're under. We do these things not knowing what we're under, right? And so what happens is that we get what we call a license of permission, and we get these license permissions to create a contract of deed, pledge, or subjugation, and we think that we're helping the people to buy property. No, that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening here. So what happened is that when you look at this, you look at who are the signers of this treaty. The signers of this treaty was American negotiators were, and that's because they had a role. They were John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and John Jay. And let's look at this. Article 1 say His Britannic Majesty uh, acknowledges the said United States, viz., which the United States only consists of, you're not New Hampshire. This was 1783. United States only consists of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island and Providence Plantation, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia to be a free and sovereign independent states, that he treats with them as such, and for himself, his heirs and successor, he relinquishes. That doesn't mean the crown still on the United States. Relinquish and ceded are two different things. There's two different contractual actions here. Relinquish is like a franchise. You have McDonald's, the franchisor, and you have the different franchisees that comes in and they purchase and want to be a part of the McDonald's family. Same thing with the corporations that were just named. The 13 colonial corporations that were just named, they became franchisees of that corporation. That's relinquished, mean they became the franchisee, which means the crown still has its interest in those corporations. Remember, this is business we're talking about. This is contract. All right. These are contracts here. And it say that he treats with them as such, and for himself, his heirs and successors, relinquishes all claims to the government, which means, okay, you're going to run your franchise, you're going to run your governance, your society, property, and territorial rights of the same in every part thereof. All right, I'm gonna let you have this latitude, longitude, jurisdiction of this franchise. Your franchise located this longitude and latitude, and it's called Georgia. Your franchise is located at this longitude, latitude, is called North Carolina, South Carolina. Franchisee, so rights are the same in every part thereof. Now, Article D2 allows for the Norfolk expansion. So these are what you call lower proprietors, be able to get their franchisees and be able to operate the corporations. People, these are business we're talking about here. This is business. This is not land ownership. This is business. Now, let's look at these founding fathers here. These are the founding fathers that they talk about. James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and John Jay, and I don't know who is that at the bottom. All right, so we're going to look at this. Let's look at their position, because this is what I said. Franchisees, franchisor, was the swarthy nobility. They had jurisdiction through papal order. They had the first letters of patent and marquee through the papacy to discover, subdue, pacification. They said, oh, we're not going to say conquer. We're going to say pacification. See how this pen started? They had to ink up some different pen now. This pen started being inked up a little differently. All right. So with the pacification. So he said, okay, the letters of patent and marquee was given to the swarthy nobility. Now, was the papacy also swarthy? Yes, these papacies, they were swarthy as well. So I'm going to give my brother the letter of patent and marquee to go and discover, conquer, pacify these areas, land, longitude, latitude. Okay, so now the swarthy nobility, we're going to give a franchise rights to these lower proprietors. We're going to call them lower proprietors. We're going to also call them ambassadors, diplomats. We're going to give them a franchisee license to operate in those dominions. So that's what we're looking at right here. That's who they are. So they call themselves the founding fathers, but they're actually lower proprietors. They're like what we call substitute governors, substitute bays. So if you look at the origin of the society, the names of the indigenous people who govern the land, they were called days, bays, els, sharifs, uh, sheiks, and things of that nature. So these are what you call substitute bays, substitute sheiks, substitute sharifs. Oh, call the sheriff, sharif. Substitute sharif, substitute Cleo. When you say the sharif is the Cleo, when they say Cleo and Leo, the Cleo is the chief law enforcement officer of the land. So instead of you calling a corporate officer, enforcement code officer, you should be calling the sharif. The sharif holds the height because the sharifs are voted. They're the only one. They are the true officers because society voted for them to hold a position, not a corporate officer. So when you see all the people say, "Oh, did you swear to a constitution? Did you swear to a constitution?" No, they swore to a job constitution. They swore to a job constitution called the United States Employment Constitution. That's what they swore to. Yeah, of course. And that's why people getting beat up in the streets. Because you don't know the difference. Stop getting beat up in the streets. Stop getting beat up in the streets. Save that fight for the mail, because court is held in the mail. Save that fight for the mail. Don't be running up in these folks' courtrooms. Don't be running up on these corporate code enforcement officers out here in these streets. Live to fight another day. Be smart about it and fight that sucker in the mail. Get into it. All right. So these Lord proprietors, they held the titles. They signed all these treaties. And this is what if we look at that, they was called ministers plenipotentiary. Ministers plenipotentiaries. I'm getting a little tongue tied up in here tonight. Hold on, y'all. I got a sip of a little water, son. They were titles. They were given titles of called ministers plenipotentiary. Let's look at this. I'm gonna unpack this, and I'm about to drop the hammer on this one. A minister plenipotentiary is a diplomat ranking below an ambassador. Hold up. Shut the front door. Hold up. Hey, you know what? A minister plenipotentiary is a diplomat ranking below an ambassador who represents a government in another country and has the authority to act on behalf of the country's leaders. Read that again. I want you to read that again. I just got to get you to read that again. Yes, is a minister's plenipotentiary is a diplomat ranking below an ambassador who represents a government in another country and has the authority to act on behalf of their country's leaders. They are often seen as the personal representative of their country's leaders. All right. So all these people they signed all these treaties. They signed all these as ministers plenipotentiary, right? Which mean what country? And what you have to put on your pen, put on your title, what country and which country. We almost there, y'all. We unpacking this. What country are you talking about? What country, for what country, and which country? Because we're dealing with two different countries we're talking about here. Let's look at this. We're dealing with two different countries. It's an ambassador who represents a government in another country and has the authority to act on behalf of their country's leader. They are often seen as the personal representative of their country's leader. So we're talking about citizenship, as they call it now, but then it was called a subject. What were these founding fathers? Who were they subject to? Who were they subject to? Who was they subject under? Because you can't be a subject to a corporation. So this is where they play with the pen and now call it a citizen. Ah, now we're getting somewhere. Now you see what a birthright is talking about. Even Trump had to unpack that thing. Whoa, wait a minute. We're gonna see how Trump had to unpack that thing right there. Let's look at that. Let's look at this U.S. Constitution, the Supremacy Clause. Remember, we talked about the treaties. We talked about the treaties that were signed by these ministers plenipotentiary. Now they've created their constitution because they're being recognized to have their sovereignty through treaty to be able to govern the territory in which what we're giving to them that's defined in the 1783 treaty. And look what they said: the supreme law of the land, this constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be on the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the state. All treaties and the judges in every state shall be bound thereof, and things in and anything in the constitution or laws of any state to the contrary is notwithstanding. So any laws made in the states, because they confederated, any statute, codes, ordinance, any of that made in the state, in the constitution or laws of any state is to the contrary, is notwithstanding, which means it's void. It doesn't stand. It has no standing. It has no legal basis. It is void ab initio on its face. All treaties, which means that Morocco's treaties supersedes the United States Constitution. We're gonna unpack this. So this now, and this is what's going on with Donald Trump with these treaties, and then we're gonna talk about how now they got to get in line with the UN because they were told to get in line with the UN because they made a treaty in compact with the UN, and they weren't getting in line with what was the mandate. But now it's reckoning time. People, wake up, come out of her, come home. It's reckoning time. Let's look at that. Let's look at this. Let's look at how that Magna Carta of 1215, and it was ratified in 1297, became a connection to the United States. In 1787, we talked about the Article 6 of the Supremacy Clause reflects the idea that the law is the highest authority. It's a principle rooted in the Magna Carta. Which means that everything was bound by the understanding of the supremacy of the treaties. All treaties. Who had jurisdiction? Who had first in line, first in time? First in line, first in time. First in time, first in law. All law. You can't go higher than that. You can't go higher than divine law, people. We got to breathe the life back into law. We got to come home. We got to come home. You're home, Dorothy. Some of y'all need to be slapped upside the head. You are home, Dorothy. Let's look at the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, echoes the Magna Carta, such as the Fifth Amendment, due process, the Sixth Amendment, fair and speedy trial, the Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, habeas corpus, U.S. legal system. The Magna Carta established the principles that people cannot be imprisoned without a lawful reason. Lawful reason. What did you stop me for, code enforcer? What did you stop me for, code enforcer? Oh, you ran a stop line. Okay. So that makes you want to snatch me out the car and bust me upside the head and choke me, or take a gun and shoot you in the street because I ran a stop sign. I didn't give you this little plastic thing that said it looked like me. It could be me. It may not be me. Okay. Go ahead and write go ahead and write. You want me to contract with you for a code ordinance? Okay. Go ahead and write that and live to see another day and fight that thing through the mail. All right. That's how you do that. All right. The Magna Carta. So the U.S. habeas corpus law, Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution ensured that, see where it says citizens, didn't say subject, it says citizen. We went over the definition of a citizen: belonging to a society, cannot be detained without being formally charged. So they can't have you just sitting there and be like, oh, I don't know what we arrested you for. No, no, no. You better figure it out. All right, no taxation. This is a good one. This is a good one. This is a good one. There's been wars and many wars, and still gonna be plenty of wars because we're going through that war right now. When you talk about this taxation without representation, everybody should be out in the street because y'all talking about war taxation on digital war, TikTok, taxation on income, taxation on goods and services. But where is the representation for the indigenous people? Oh, you said it's through the 14th Amendment. Trump said, mm-mm. Yeah, no. These people not supposed to be getting taxed. There's a higher treaty. That these people are not to be getting taxed here. Now we're gonna be taxing anyone. We're gonna be taxing the people that call themselves native. We can tax those. We can tax the people that the children of the Slavic descendants. We could tax those. But these people that we reclassified as Black, Negro, colored, African American, they're not supposed to be getting taxed. This is not their nation of representation. They're under usurpation, occupation, and colonization. They're not supposed to be getting taxed. That's the message that the North, East, West, South media is not telling you and would never tell you. That's why you have just another messenger. Checks and balance in government. Just as the Magna Carta limited the king's power, the U.S. government has a system of checks and balances between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches to prevent any branch from becoming too powerful. We're going to unpack that to show you how this is the fact. This is operating de facto since 1933. We're going to unpack that too. All right, now let's look at the ecclesiastical subjugation that's taking place here. Let's look at how this pen goes deep all the way into your church. Let's look at how it goes all the way into your church and why it's in your church. Hallelujah, and need to come out of that. Now, the 501c is a tax exempt status, was officially introduced in the Internal Revenue Code of 1954, but its origins date back to the Revenue Act of 1913. 1913? What happened in 1913? I'm going to show you what happened in 1913. I will show you exactly what happened in 1913. Just hold on. Hold your seats. We're going to really get into this thing. All right. Now, in October the 9th, 1968, you know what? Martin Luther King and our people, our freedom fighters, they was wearing their shoes out. You know what I'm saying? They was wearing their shoes out about government. They were involved. They were heavily involved in the governance, but it was for let's see how we're going to say this. It was for civil rights. The fight in the end, I truly believe that Martin Luther King recognized, oh shit, we in the wrong damn fight. We sitting here fighting civil rights, and we need to be fighting human rights. But the spirit among the continue forward. That's why we have just another message. That's why we have other messages and freedom fight. We take that message and we make the course correction of action with that. Malcolm X, we make the course correction of past messengers that continue to breathe the life towards liberation. Malcolm said, wait a minute. Our people get on the front line, get in the streets. We let our voices be heard. We control government. Government is controlled by the people, not our representative. It's controlled by the people. And these churches had so much power. They had so much power. Let me show you how the pen stabbed them in the neck and just cut all their voices out. It's called a 501c3. Senator Lyndon B. Johnson, who later became the U.S. president, pushed for an amendment that barred 501c3 organizations from endorsing or opposing political candidates due to the pressures of the 1964 and 1968 civil rights movement led by Dr. Martin Luther King. Johnson Amendment effectively silenced, cut their wisdom, said, shut your mouth, shut up. Your congregation, your nation of your congregation, I'm gonna cut the head off the leader. And that's what the 501c3, it made them afraid that your little tax exempt status gonna be taken away from you. It's going to be taken away from you, and you're not even going to be able to preach the gospel. If you're preaching the word of God, I didn't know there was a tax on that too. That's how you know it's wrong. How you put a tax on preaching the gospel? That's how you know it's out of alignment. Come on now, come out of her, people. And how do you come out of her? I'll tell you how. It's called a church affidavit. It's called a 508. Remember, I'm going to tell you, every single law, statutory law, code, ordinance that these franchisees place on their book, they have to make a way of escape. Every spell that's casted has to be a remedy for that spell, because they can't keep themselves subjugated up with you. It got to be a way of escape. So the way of escape for this 501c3 is a 508, which is your church affidavit through the voice of your people. And our people need to come out of that 501c3 and be able to get into it as a body of people. These silent the churches. Oh, and guess who else got silent? Nonprofits. So as people get ready to prepare for this bread and circus called that's gonna happen on Sunday, they call the what that thing called? Super Bowl. Yeah, that thing called the Super Bowl. As they prepare for the bread and circus, you don't hear them talking a word about what's going on in the news with the tariffs, with the migration, because they're silenced too. They have nonprofit organization, news outlets. They can only go so far. They can't go too deep. They're gonna scratch that surface, like scratching that itch, and it's still back there. It be still back there. They can't go deep into that scratch. All right. And that prevents them from speaking openly about government corruption or political policies. Because when you have that 501c3 status, Lyndon Johnson told y'all, shut your mouth up. Shut your mouth. Now let's look at this power. We should be at a time in period to where there should be some jubilee going on with this. I know there's a lot of people that like, I don't like Trump. Look, there's a lot of times I think as our people, through the mental castration, a lot of times we get hung up with what the messenger look like, what the messenger is wearing, the status of the messenger. Oh, do they have an education? What is their level? We get so hung up in all the nuance that we fail to miss the message. You fail to see that Moses, whether you like what Moses looked like, whether you like how it's being done, Moses is saying, let these people go. If you can't see it, I understand. There's a covering. There's a covering. There's a sweet covering. There's a divine covering. Because I remember in my ignorance, someone covered me. But there is a divine coverance. But the message is going clear. This is where we should be right now. We should be in a space where we say there is a new day. There is a new and a done day. All right. Can't you feel a brand new day? Let's look at these presidential powers. And this is why President Donald Trump, I would give you your title. You earned that through the vote of confidence of the millions of people that voted for you. You have the presidential powers of this corporation, formal and informal. I'll let you look at that. All right. But let's get into this. And I truly believe this is why this is going down. There's no title of nobility in the United States, which when you look at this, you will see why President Donald Trump is challenging now birthright citizenship. Can you imagine of being in a position where you were once heir to the land, and through the stroke of a pen, through years of ignorance and not knowing and being castrated from your cultural norms, fourways and forkways, and understanding that you lose your inheritance. And through this emoluments clause, it restricts government's officials, but not citizens, from receiving gifts, emoluments, offices, or titles from foreign states without Congress's consent. Let's look at this for number 45 and number 47, President of the United States of America, Inc. I said that, Inc. He is a descendant of the King Christian I of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. He's from the House of Oldenburg on his paternal side. He also has Scottish royalty. Oh, shit. Does that make him melanated? Royalty, swarting royalty, as Christian first was the father of Queen Margaret of Scotland. Wait a minute, Trump. Are you a mulatto Moor, descended from a mulatto Moor, Trump? Oh, Lord have mercy. Who married King James the Fourth of Scotland. Now, on his maternal side, Marianne MacLeod was born in Tongue on the islands of Lewis in Scotland. So on his mother and his paternal side, he has Scottish heritage. Now, who were the Scots? They are the swarty people. Trump, are you mulatto? Are you mulatto, Trump? Are you a descendant of the mulatto Moors, Trump? All right now. Now he's also related to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Rodham Clinton. And I said that correctly. Hillary Rodham Clinton. Through the paternal side, through a common ancestry of John of Gaunt, son of King Edward III. Swarty nobility. Trump has lost his birthright. Trump is aware that he has lost his birthright. And that's why President Trump wants to purchase Greenland, that is of the territory of Denmark, that puts him back in his birthright status. Did I say that? Did I say that? Purchases Greenland, people. Put Trump's back into his inheritance. It don't have anything to do with you. It has to do with his birthright. Trump is going back for his birthright, just as you and I need to go back and reclaim our inheritance. That's what Trump is doing. Now, let's look at James Traficant's U.S. bankruptcy speech. This is in congressional record. Look it up. Don't believe me? Look it up. Everything I tell you, I want you to look it up. I want you to test it, verify, put it to the fire of truth. This is in congressional records, March the 17, 1993, volume 33, page H 1303. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act on March the 9th, 1933, 48 Stat 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt, being bankrupt and insolvent, House Joint Resolution 192 of the 73rd Congress in session on June the 5th, 1933, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States. And that's why it's called the United States. It now has a EIN number, and that's why it's called the United States Inc. Go look it up on Dun and Bradstreet. Go look it up. All right. Authority of the United States and the official capacity of all United States governmental officers in the departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. Name only. The receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. Now, do you see why that President Trump has to now get into alignment with United Nations? It's been enough going on back and forth, enough time to try to clear it up and get the United States out of its bankruptcy and insolvency since 1933. So your Federal Reserve notes, you've never been paid a day in your life. Anyone that's alive today, you've never been paid a day in your life. You're not, because you wasn't compensated through the gold or silver. There's not been an exchange of money. The only money is in the Constitution is gold and silver. So now everything's now is on the Emergency Banking Act. Let's look at this. I know we went over, and I hope you don't mind, because I hope I'm providing you some valuable information of understanding of what's going on here. Let's look at something. Yeah, there it is right there. Let's look at that. Ooh, I need to get out the way. All right, let's look at that. How do I make this bigger? Okay, here it is. Oh, to make this bigger. Okay, full size. All right, there we go. Now I was just reading that. All right, this is the speech we talked about. Let's look at something else. I want to show you something here. All right. It say the receivers of the United States are the international bankers via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. All United States offices, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status in the name only under emergency war powers. With the Constitutional Republic form of government now dissolved, the receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. This new form of government is known as a democracy, being an established socialist communist order under a new governor for America. This act was instituted and established by transferring and or placing the office of the Secretary of Treasury to that of the governor of the International Monetary Fund. So the Secretary of Treasurer is the governor of the International Monetary Fund. And you can find that by looking up Public Law 94-564, page 8, section House Resolution 13955 reads in parts, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury received no compensation for representing the United States. Look what it say here now. Gold and silver were such a powerful money during the founding of the United States of America that the founding fathers declared that only gold and silver coins can be money in America. So why the hell are you walking around with this Federal Reserve note? Now, since gold and silver coins were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions, they were stored in banks, and a claim check, which is a gold or silver certificate, was issued as a monetary substitute. Not a Federal Reserve note was issued as a money substitute. It said gold and silver. Now, redeemable currency must promise to pay a dollar equivalent in gold or silver money. Federal Reserve notes make no such promises and are not money. A Federal Reserve note is a debt obligation of the federal United States government, not money. The federal United States government and the U.S. Congress were not and have never been authorized by the Constitution for the United States of America to issue currency of any kind but any lawful money, which is gold and silver. Gold and silver, my people. Gold and silver, my people. Come out of her. Come out of her. All right. Now, this is why it's getting to when we talk about human rights versus civil rights. This is where, if you did not know, you about to know. There was a convention that took place. And it was called the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. So, so while people are having this argument, you have people such as, I wouldn't trust them no farther than I can throw down. Let me drink this. It's been an hour. I'm gonna wrap this up, y'all. I'm gonna wrap this up. But I definitely wanted to get into this and make it very, very understandable. Very understandable. So you can understand what's going on, get involved, get in action. All right. So, man, don't listen to these mainstream jokers such as Roland Martin. What's another Joy Reid? Hair, I'll be all different kind of crazy colors. You don't know what's going on with Joy Reid. All these actors, these sellout actors. Oh, special Al Sharpton. What Fruit Loop name? Don Lemon. All them. Please. We have to stay away from them people. They have been brought and sold. They will sell you for 1 cent, not even 30 cents, 1 cent. They'll sell you for 1 cent because they don't know who they are. So they are the gatekeepers of your subjugation and oppression. They are your gate, and they look like us, just like your swarthy nobility. They were your swarthy nobility sold us out as well. It's continuation. That's how much our frequency, that's how much our energy, that's how much powerful we are. There's somebody want to really capture that and use it against you. Yeah. Telling you, people, you have to get into the understanding of law. And I'm not talking jurisprudence. Am I telling you to go to school for law? No, you don't. What school? What school? You are the school. You are the school. Skull. You are the school. The school starts with you. You are the school. Go to school. Go to your skull. It's up there for you. You got that up in there for a reason. That is school. School. Heart. School. Skull. Look up the etymology of school. Skull. The mind. Go into the mind. It's beautiful up there. Even if you're crazy, it's still beautiful. It's your crazy. Let's look and see. Let's look at what's now talking about this human rights. Now we unpack birthright. We unpack that. Talking about birthright theft. We unpack birthright, citizenship. Now we're gonna unpack civil rights. This is what talk about civil rights versus human rights. This is the Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. This is where, remember I told you it's the UN, the bankruptcy, and now it's taken over by the UN, the World Bank, and all that. Let's look at that. Let's look at what the UN had put in order. Share screen. All right, let's look and see. I have this last one up. People, I think you're going to enjoy this. Let's look and see what the UN International Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. Let's look at that. Let me see how you can make this bigger. Yeah. How do you make this bigger? Okay, zoom in. All right, there you go. Let's zoom into that. It said the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, United Nations, 1966. Did I say 1966? So the civil rights movement was going on in 1964 and 1968. Why was it necessary for the UN to come in 1966 after the first Civil War to place things and to put these mandates in order? They put these mandates in order. And let's see what it reads. Oh God. I hope you can see that. I'm gonna play with this. All right. I want you to see this. All right, that's better. It's a International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. This is your breaking down of affirmative action. Don't need it. This is your breaking down of the DEI. Don't need it. You don't need any of that when it has been codified that the people, the indigenous, autochthonous people of the land must operate based off human rights and not civil rights. It say the states parties to this convention, considering that the Charter of the United States is based on the principles of the dignity of equality inherited in all human beings, inherited in her, in law, in indigenous state, in endogenous state. It doesn't say about a native. And they say in all that all member states have pledged themselves to take joint and separate action in cooperation with the Organization for the Achievement of the Purposes of the United Nations, which is to promote and encourage universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. It's a considering that Universal Declaration of Human Rights proclaimed that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, and that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set out therein without the distinctions of any kind, in particular as to race, color, or national origin. My people, why are you sitting up here fighting a unnecessary fight about affirmative action and DEA when there has been a compact agreement that these nations must they sign on to through the creation of the UN, and they sign on to be in agreement with it's human rights and not civil rights. So what is this civil rights joke that we talking about here? Look at this. It considering that all human beings are equal before the law, not under the law, not subjugated to the law, to stand before the law. That's the divinity, and are entitled to equal protection and the law against discrimination against any incident to discrimination. All right. It's a considering that the United Nations has condemned colonialism. Did you read that? Colonialism. Now you see why Trump's talking about this 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship. The UN has condemned colonialism and all practice of segregation and discrimination associated therewith in whatever form and whatever they exist, and that the declaration of the granting of independence of colonial countries and peoples of 14th December 1960, which is the General Assembly Resolution of 1514, has affirmed and solemnly proclaimed the necessity of bringing them to a speedy and unconditional end. Y'all gotta let these folks be in their status. They can't be running around here talking about that black, Negro, colored, African American, and the ones that learn and understand who they are. You want to wage war against them and put them in a fugitive states, and then you got them under the fugitive acts, and they don't have anywhere to run to and seek asylum because they are, Dorothy, they are home. They are home, Dorothy. Well, what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing over there in Americas? What are y'all doing? Y'all better get this thing together. And it said, considering that the United Nations Declaration of the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination on the 20th November 1963, when this before the 1964 Civil Rights. Now, why was they playing around with that? When the UN had already told them during the General Assembly. Stalin affirms that the necessity of speedy eliminating racial discrimination throughout the world is all its forms and manifestation and securing understanding of and respect for the dignity of the human person. Yeah, the dignity of the human person. Yeah, that's your DEA people. That's your affirmative action that's not needed. That's your DEI that's not needed. So what is this argument? That's why I say you be careful who you have who you're listening to with these conversations. But because they've been anything that's being placed on the forefront, be wary of that because they're doing the work of the oppressor to keep you subjugated, to keep you under colonization, to keep you under occupation. There was agreement. See, there's what you call wars of war. Wars of war, the rules of wars of war been established long before the United States even wanted to become a franchise. This was established long ago when through monarchs, kings and queens of nation. These Hammurabi, these rules were established for a reason because when you violate the number one rule, which is subjugation, you violate divine law. You violate God. It's a violation unto God. And why you see these nations fall. Because anytime you make the number one violation, and that's subjugation, usurping free will, you violate God. You can name whatever your God is, it's a violation unto God. So that's why there's a course correction going on right now. So you should be singing There's a Brand New Day. You should be singing There's a Brand New Day. Can't you see a brand new day? We're talking about these human rights versus civil rights, divine rights, the will of a sovereign political community to choose a system of government versus man-made laws. It upholds a deeply unequal global order, a deeply unequal global order. There was this fake, these Siberian natives that you want you to rescind the doctrine of discovery. Yeah, and we need you to be who you are too. We need you to be and act accordingly and know who you are without a doubt or contradiction. That where you come from, who are your ancestors? Because they have been complicit in the usurpation and colonization as well. So while this argument was going on to rescind the doctrine of discovery, let's look at what modern case law of the doctrine of discovery said to them. In 1823, Johnson versus McIntosh, Marshall ruled only possession occupancy rights, meaning their lands could be taken by powers that discovered them, which is the doctrine of discover. And the meaning of law and occupancy means occupancy is the act of possessing, residing in, or using a property as an owner or tenant. Now, you know how when you get your deed pledge, you go and become I'm not going to say buy. I got to get this language right. You know how you take an interest in a longitude and latitude of a military occupation zone known as an address. You take an interest in it. And when you sit down with an actor and you're signing the deed pledge for that, at the top of the description, because remember, contract is in description. Contract description have to be at the very top. In the contract, the description, it say all this tract of land, and they give longitude, latitude, and then they give the in parentheses to give the military zip code 123 Courtway of the city state, zip code, military codes, right? But the actual location is longitude and latitude. It gives that, right? And then it say as tenants in commons or joint tenants in commons, which means you have an interest to everything that is built up from the concrete on up. You have an interest from the concrete on up in this apparatus, not the land, because ain't nobody got no we have control of the land, but we're gonna give you just joint tenants and commons of this building structure, right? So that's how those dead pledges are. That's how they read. Um, Now we can't talk about how to get out of them things. Not on this. No. Remember, I told you there's a way of escape, but that's not something. Now you're getting the information, so your mind should be saying, "Well, how do we get out of it?" Yeah, there's always a way of escape. Always a way of escape. All right. Now, on March the 30th, 2023, Pope Francis repudiated the doctrine of discovery, a legal concept that allowed Europeans to claim lands they discovered. The principle was that discovery gave title to the government by whose subjects or by whose authority it was made against all other European governments, which title may be consumed by possession. But let's look in law what the word repudiate means. He said, we repudiate. Man, repudiate means I refuse to fulfill or discharge an agreement, an obligation, or a debt. People, I mean, you can't make this up. People like, but the Pope repudiated and they got to go. No, the Pope said, I refuse. He said, I refuse. I refuse to fulfill or discharge an agreement, obligation, or debt. Oh, we have to get to post-millennium international law. We have to get to the uniting as a people and be able to exercise this post-millennium and international law. And what are the key aspects of post-millennium internet restoration of status? People, we must get into our proper status. Once again, we are not Black, Negro, color, and African American. We have to restore our native, indigenous, autochthonous, aboriginal status as a person, a natural person. We our property and territory. We must not seek reparation. We must seek reparation. Land, ships, and other assets recaptured from any enemy may be returned or restored to their original owners or state or estate. All right. We must also have restoration of status through cultural status, as individuals or groups, positions, identity, and recognition within a society's cultural framework. It is shaped by factors such as heritage, traditions, language, social customs, and artistic contributions. Cultural status is about identity, influence, and the recognition of cultural heritage within a society. Your nationality is in society as well. And based on national status is based on citizenship or political status. Now, nationality, political, and cultural status go hand in hand like a glove, which deal with the governance and the rights. And it is tied to citizenship is tied to corporation. Nationality is tied to birthright or allegiance to your sovereign state, your sovereign status. As you have a call to duty and prepare yourself to come out of her, you should have a feeling of going home. It's time to come home, my people. We must come out of her. It's time to come on. This was rough. Thank you for tuning in. Every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are not monetizing on YouTube because we do not want them to cut our wisdom. We just want to get the messages out and clear. So please support the channel through our Cash App at $ just another messenger. Please, if you'd like to email, you would like to invite someone, you'd like to be a part of the show, you would like to be a part of being a messenger, email me at justanothermessengerpodcast@gmail.com. like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's get these numbers up. Let's have an organic movement and getting the messages clear for it's time to come home, people. This is rough. I'm sorry. It's time to come home. Everyone have a good evening. Thank you for tuning in to Just Another Messenger.